What's up, Dragon Brew? Today is April 5th, Sunday. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start keeping a calendar in front of me while we're on lockdown. But yeah, so today is Sunday, April 5th, 2020. We have more Ikoria spoilers today. Looks like it was mostly stuff for Commander, which is fine because that's always exciting, and I know people really want to talk about that. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. Okay, so just so we know, I'm not going to really go over too many of the reprints. I probably won't go over any reprints because there's just going to be a ton. It's part of the Commander setup. So I'm mostly going to be touching on new cards, and that's also going to add a little bit of brevity to the video. But anyway, we're going to start today with Twinning Staff, which is a really sweet card for only 3 mana. The cool part is this card lets you copy a spell an additional time for free. So anytime you would copy something, you get to copy it that many times again. So it's like, I don't know, man. This is crazy. I don't even know how. Like for 3 mana, that's a really, really powerful card. And there's some decks that are already based around copying stuff. So this is going to be an auto fit for that type of deck. And then you also have the ability to just pay 7 and copy it if you just don't have anything else that lets you copy a spell. So this is actually really neat. Something different, a little bit outside the norm for them to make, but it's actually really cool. And the fact that it's colorless means you don't have any color restrictions and it can go into any deck that wants to try to go down that road. I wanted to take a second and give Crystallis Residents a quick mention. I don't know how powerful this type of card could be, but truthfully, the fact that there are so many cycling cards already in existence and we're getting another handful of them in the latest set, this is actually pretty cool. I mean, getting to just copy something is pretty neat. And it doesn't really have a restriction. It just becomes another copy of another permanent. That's the other thing too, it's not even a creature. So you could possibly turn this, like we just were talking about with the twinning thing, like you go ahead and copy that. Now the next thing you play, you get an extra couple of copies. So it's actually exponentially more copies. Like there's all kinds of dumb things you're gonna be able to do with this card. So should be a lot of fun. Now we may look at this Herald of the Forgotten and say, okay, this is 8 mana. Like is this something I really want to play? Well, first off, there's a lot of ways to ramp your mana in Commander. We all know this, right? But it is a 6/6 flyer. But kind of just how we looked at the last card, if you're playing stuff with a bunch of cycling, like just being able to get everything back to the battlefield, that is huge. It's not going back to your hand, just straight into play, and you get to immediately start going to town with them. So this is pretty cool. Now granted, it only works if you actually cast it, so you can't trick it into play or anything, but that's still really worth it. All right, so this is like one half of 2 different cards I want to talk about. This one because and both of them are because they're kind of opposite color in some ways from what you expect them to be. So in this case, Barracuda of the Tide lets any player cast spells as though they had flash. So now everybody at the table can play anything at instant speed. And it's not any type of spell, just all spells, which is interesting. But your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, which is interesting because that's like more of a green thing, where in reality you normally want your opponents to not be able to counter your stuff, but you're kind of good the rest of the time. So it was kind of surprising that this was on a blue card. But then I saw Glade Muse, and I was thinking, wait, shouldn't this be on a blue card? So I almost feel like they got the color identities of these cards mixed up, because the Glade Muse says whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, that player draws a card, which is more of something a blue player would want, right? Because they want to play more instants and then be able to get the extra cards. Whereas the other one feels more green because they would want to protect stuff during their turn. So I'm not totally sure. My only guess is they work in a very particular way in the Commander decks they're in, but obviously I haven't seen the full deck list, so I can't speak to that yet. I just find it very awkward that this is kind of the situation we're in with these 2 cards. They seem to be casted appropriately and playable if you want to include them for various reasons. It's just very weird. Now I'll have to say, if there's a card from this year's Commander set that has the possibility of being really pricey, even within the next year or 2, it's probably Escape Refractor. I mean, the fact that it copies every ability on every land, like, That's wild. And it's not even your land, it's all activated abilities of all lands on the battlefield. So yours and your opponent's. I mean, that's like an extra Cabal Coffers or Gaia's Cradle or who knows what. There's tons of options you could have to just accelerate your mana, to remove creatures from play, to untap things. Like lands do so much stuff, and we all know when you're playing Commander, everybody has just 30 different types of lands, so who knows what you're going to be able to do with this. The best part is too, even if you have an ability that has a colored cost, you can pay any color to pay for it. I mean, it enters the battlefield tapped, so there's that, but I don't think that really matters for this type of card. This is very cool, and a lot of times it's going to help you smooth your mana, but late in the game, it could, if you think about it, there's even sometimes lands are kind of critical to some players' ending game plan. And if you also have that ability, in some cases, it may be able to protect you from those in-game scenarios. So I don't know, there's a lot to really, I guess, pick apart about this card in detail on how it's going to be utilized, but it's actually really strong, really cool. This is one I think, I don't know if I'd say it's going to be an automatic for Commander decks, but it's definitely going to be highly, highly played in most lists. Now, this Spellfire Phoenix is actually pretty interesting, and it does cost 5/4/4/2, so that in and of itself isn't that exciting. But it's another card that functions around having cycling. So the translation is that whenever the Phoenix enters the battlefield, you may return an instant or sorcery card with cycling from your graveyard to your hand. So when it comes into play, you get a cycling card back to your hand. But at the beginning of each end step, if you've cycled at least 2 cards, well, 2 cards that turn, then you return the Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. So you can cycle 2 things, get it back. Then when you play it, you're getting 1 of those back. So it kind of almost lets you just keep cycling your cycle cards. That's weird wording, but that's what it allows you to do. So I think there's some cool stuff going on there. And remember, there's also some different types of cycling cards over the history of Magic that aren't just discard to draw a card. Some let you search for a thing, some let you get certain types of land. So there's a lot going, and some cards even trigger when they're cycled. So there's a lot of stuff going on with this card. I think if you're playing a cycling based deck, this is actually a very interesting card to have. Okay, this card I just like. It's just fun, it's interesting. It rewards you for having some different types of things in your deck going on. And it's really cool in the sense that you reveal 7 cards, which is a lot. Like, yeah, you're playing 99 cards and all that, but it is a lot to look at 7 cards. And usually means that there's a good chance, assuming your deck has a bunch of different keyword abilities, that there's a chance you're going to get 2 or 3 cards off of this almost every time. And it's pretty neat because you put one on the battlefield and the rest go into your hand. So you're going to, of them, get the one you want, and then you have the others ready to go to reload. It's kind of a really good card for green because I don't think they have as many just direct acquisition cards. You have some that can like work their way into getting stuff into play, but usually cost a lot more mana. This having just a fixed cost to let you get a couple of creatures is pretty cool, and it doesn't seem to be restricted by any type of casting cost or anything, which is nice. So if you just have some giant monster there you want to get, great. Now you get it right into play. So yeah, definitely expect people to play this card. It's very, very neat. Okay, this is another one that actually is just an interesting, I guess, way to word a card specifically for Commander so it works. So the translation on this card is that it's Deadly Trick, it's 4 mana, it's an instant. If you control a commander, you can play it without paying its mana cost, and it exiles target creature. So obviously being able to just remove a creature is awesome, and it's instant speed, which is awesome. And then if you control a commander, it's free. Also notice it says if you control a commander, not your commander. So it's also possible that if for some reason you've taken control of an opponent's commander, you still get to play this for free. So it's kind of cool. Maybe it fits into more decks because of that, but it's just a good quality all-around card. I mean, when you're looking to decide what those last few commander cards are, or removal cards you might actually put in your commander deck, this could be one of the ones you consider because there's a chance you just get to play it for free. You know, especially late in the game when we're talking about those big follow-ups, post-sweeper, or maybe as you're approaching the end of the game, you can go ahead and play your commander, and if you're light on mana, you can still kill a threat, which is a rare situation, especially if you have one of those 5, 6, 7 cost commanders and you're playing it for the second or third time in the game. So this is actually a pretty cool, useful utility card. but it has a very interesting wording, which I hope they use as templating on other cards as well, because it kind of opens the door for a lot of interesting things to be made. And this little Cartographer's Hawk is pretty neat, right? Like, it's a 2-mana 2/1, so it actually is a fairly efficient creature, which is pretty cool. Which also, because it's a 2-cost 2/1 flyer, there is an off chance that this card shows up in some other format. You know, whether that's Legacy or Vintage or whatever. Not highly likely, but if a card's going, or especially a creature is going to make that transition, it's going to be something that costs 3 or less, usually 2 or less, and have some level of evasion or some way to advance their mana or something. That's usually the way it's going to work. But in this case, if you deal damage to a player that has more lands than you, you actually return it to your hand and you get to go get more land. So it's actually pretty neat in the sense that you can almost kind of cycle it, you know, like attack, turn it to your hand, go search for land, replay it, get ready to do it next turn. And it's one of the few ways that white has kind of recurring to put lands into play. So this is actually really neat. I mean, obviously it says a plains, so I mean, you can get stuff that's a land type that counts as a plains, so that could help. So you may have limitations on how many lands you can get with it where it loses its efficiency, but it's still pretty neat to even have access to that. And I like it from a just game mechanic standpoint that it's encouraging you to attack the player with the most land. So I like cards that are encouraging different activity just based on how the cards work. So you may want to attack this other player because, well, you know, you just don't like the deck they're playing or whatever it is. But in reality, you may be better served attacking this other player that has more land because you need more mana to play something on the next couple turns. So these types of decisions are actually really good to have come up in a Commander game, and it kind of helps move the action a little bit, which I don't think is ever really bad. Okay, I think that's all that caught my eye today. Like I said, it was a bunch of Commander cards. There were some partners. I'm not necessarily super big on the partner cards. I think they're fine. They're playable. They didn't have really standout abilities to me, but I may wait till the end of the spoiler season, and I may do a video just on the partners of Commander Ikoria. I think that could be kind of interesting. And then I can knock them out all at one time, because it's a little bit more difficult to speak of them as individual cards. I'm going to speak of them in sets to really make it work. So we may make that the last video of the preview season, I guess. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And please like the video if you like getting these types of previews and keeping stuff going. And I guess that's it. So till tomorrow, see ya.